wondering, why did we call this Athlete Advance? It seems like a weird title, and often people refer to it as retreats. This is a retreat, it's a day, but we call it an advance here at Canadian Sports Centre Pacific. It's part of our culture because we feel we're always moving forward, not backwards, and the word retreat really bothered us. And so we've changed it. We just took the liberty and said, no, we're not going to call it a retreat, we're going to call it an advance. So that's why it's called an Athlete Advance. I hope today helps you advance your skills as an athlete and a leader.
And you know, as we keep moving here, I'll share a couple of ideas. But can I say this? You know the beautiful thing about life? You know the beautiful thing about athleticism? Is that we will fail. Let's put that on the table right now. I'm not going to ask you if you've ever failed in your mind. We all do. The greatest part about what we do as athletes is that we learn how to win out of failure. And that may be the key skill to not athleticism, but to life.
How many of you have been in the gym, have worked with lots of people, but never taken the moment to look at that little micro detail? So, I want you to stand up again. I want you to think a little bit about your hips and pelvis. If you need to, put your thumbs on the bottom of your rib cage and your index fingers on your hip bones, like right on the pelvis. And try and keep that space equal as you go down. The muscle that does that is your gluteus medius. So remember I mentioned earlier that your glutes are part of the core, well they're also part of the hip and pelvis stability. So if you need to, keep your hands there and let your partner have a visual tool of where is that going? Is it dropping? So if this happens, it's because my left buttocks is on holidays. So I gotta use it. If the knee is collapsing inward, so the entire running shoe industry built this whole megalopoly around shoes that would prevent pronation. Do you know how many people aren't really pronators? They're just so weak in that function that they come in with orthotics and they're basically running on 2x4s, but they can't stand on a single leg.
So what do we know about planning? How many people in here have actually sat down and done a plan? Training plan before? A few? Good. Okay? Because what we're going to do today is you're going to do some hands-on stuff. We're going to go through, give you a basic idea. What I'd like is some of the Canadian elite athletes to make sure you're split up and get the coaches out. So you're going to be in groups of 4 or 5 working together.
We believe that athletes on the whole are not getting enough sleep. And that's through the research that we did with the winter teams prior to 2011. And we feel that they should be at least getting 8 hours of sleep for most athletes. However, that changes through the age range. And if that's the baseline and they're training, we believe that probably more towards 9 or 10 hours depending on the age. So the athletes that are getting only 7 or 6 for sure are probably not getting enough. And the athletes that are getting less than 6, of which there are some, are definitely not getting enough. So the top sleep tip for insomniacs, number 1 is stop watching the clock. End of story. In the middle of the night, the first thing people do who can't sleep is they look at the clock. And if they just stop looking at the clock, they're going to do better with their sleep.
What the Athlete Career Program is it is a program to help athletes recognize that they need to be successful for life, and that actually can help their performance and their development in stages. I have a quick question for everybody. What's the average age of an Olympic athlete? Let's assume it's about 25. It's really about 28, but for math reasons, and I heard the math answers this morning, I'm going to go 25 for even number. It's about 28. So how long do you guys compete to be an athlete? 15, 18 years? What's the average retirement age in Canada? I'm going to ask you.
65.
65. So how many years are you going to work? 40. I'm really quick here. So you were competing for 15 years, you loved it, and it's going to end, and what am I going to do for the rest of my life? This program is really about what do I do for the rest of my life.
So you have on your recipe cards here, you have a bunch of little smoothie recipes, and I try to give you guys some other ideas. A lot of times we make smoothies with fruit and yogurt and milk. So I try to give you some other ideas like dates. Dates will have a really concentrated sugar source, so in terms of recovery and just replenishing your glycogen stores, dates are a great option. Also, if you're somebody who needs to take in more calories, more carbohydrate, we have mangoes and bananas here, so those are, and pumpkin as well. They're going to be a little more calorie, a little more carbohydrate dense, so just to consider that if you need to boost up your calories or carb intake, those are some fruits. That would be good options.
You want to have in your head, have 1, 2, or 3 cues. Those cues can be verbal, for some of us, we'll just talk to ourselves. Others might be visual. You might prefer to actually stop, take a deep breath, and look at something. Or they might be like the deep breath, the physical, an action play. Your warm-up's really good for that. Okay, but sometimes stopping what you're doing, taking a deep breath. And the great thing about sport is all of you have got technical and tactical cues that you can stop and use to refocus. So when the door creeps open, and it's like, oh my God, I can't do this, or I'm really struggling here, and now they're catching me up, or whatever, you can think about something technical to do. It's when I hear parents shout out, concentrate! And I feel like shouting back at the parent, come on! So don't do that to yourselves. Give yourself something to concentrate on. The skill is, have something in your head that you know works, so that when you feel yourself negatively slipping, you stop it. It's called negative thought stopping. You stop it, and then you replace it with something, with a cue, to get you back on track. Okay? Maybe it's what you're feeling in your feet on the pedal, or maybe it's me feeling of the boat under my, through my hips, and whatever it is, something technical or tactical that can refocus you.
As a powerful example of an athlete who has aligned with charities because they believed it was the right thing to do, and as they became successful, had a firm understanding of what they stood for, and told as many people that story as possible. Okay? So why is it important to go through defining your personal brand? Because you all have within you something that motivates you beyond the everyday, beyond just, say, going to work. You have a goal that you want to accomplish. You have something that you are passionately 100% committed to, which is sport. And what Claire Hughes has taught us is that's a transferable skill. You can take all of that you learn about being a great athlete, okay, and you can create something for yourself and for others that is equally as powerful, if not more powerful.
As athletes, that's one thing you have going for you. You tend to be very kinetic, you tend to move well, and so I encourage you to do that. I remember my first presentation, I was behind a podium. I was stuck behind a podium, I felt so constricted. And now when I do my presentations, quite often when I do a keynote address, I always ask for a wireless mic or one of those Janet Jackson mics, And I like to move around, I like to get involved with the crowd, I like to get out there. And as an athlete, you'll probably feel the same way because you're used to moving. You don't want to be contained and constricted.
Now lift up your left leg, breathe in. Exhale, fold forward, press everything down. Both feet come together, and hands forward, open. And hands come down. That was amazing. Exhale, press out. Inhale, up we go. Same thing, exhale, fold forward. So see now we've got the movements down. Just inhale, reach the fingertips into the chest. Exhale, right foot steps back, going to the stand, going to the flow. Inhale, arms reach straight up towards the sky.
During the Olympics, probably heard this story numerous times. When he came to Canada, when the immigration officer who was processing him stamped his passport and let him go through, he said, "Make us better." And that really is what this session is about today. How can you make us better? And by us, I mean the world in general.
Just the fact that you're here to listen and to plant the seed in your head and your heart is one step farther than I ever thought. My belief is that every athlete has a responsibility to pay it forward.
to pay back to all the people that have helped you along the way. Every opportunity that you've been given needs to be passed on to the next generation, to somebody who's less fortunate, or just open a door that door normally wouldn't be open.
And so I was working through this, and I was trying to find a way that I could mesh this, and I came to the idea that being an athlete is selfish, and to be very, very successful at athletics, you need to be incredibly selfish. You need to be more selfish than anyone would ever teach you or tell you or command you to be in your life, because that's what performance is all about. But being selfish is very draining, because we're social creatures. And at that point in time, I decided that I hadn't been giving back enough, and I needed to feed that spiritual, that communal side of myself. And so I became a big brother, or with big brothers and sisters. And I found that by just spending an hour a week with this little boy, he was 8 years old at the time. Now he's 18 years old. I've been with him for 10 years. It regenerated me.
You know, that kind of relationship can go on for a long time, but like I said, there are so many kids in your communities every day that really, really, you know, can take away a lot from just a little bit of inspiration every day, or just a little bit of, you know, a tip or whatever it is, just a few minutes. And, you know, it's like being a big brother, except it only takes like 5 minutes after practice to encourage a kid. And I think it really, I remember going home and talking to my mom about how stoked I was that an older athlete said something encouraging to me, and I think we've all been there before, and we know the power of that.
Well, it was great. We got to connect with all the other athletes, got to learn a lot to help us move ourselves forward in our sport. So, you know, for a young athlete like myself who's making the step from the junior national level to senior national level, I can't think of any other way to spend a Saturday afternoon.
I thought the food session was really good because it really kind of explained everything to me, because I'm not very good at cooking in general, and when I have to do it on a training camp basis, it's really hard for me. I don't know why, I just can't do it on my own especially, and that kind of just taught me a couple things that I could do on my own. So
the athletes events today has been really awesome. Like I've been to sessions today about growing your athlete brand and life sport balance and things, a lot of things that I felt like are important away from the pool, not just in sport, and helping me develop as a person and sort of separate myself as the identity of the athlete. And so that was very important for me, since I'm starting to get to the age of thinking about retirement and thinking about the next step, and a lot of the things I've learned today are going to help me out with that.